Welcome to another episode of the Retirement Insights Podcast. I'm James Anderson and joined as always with Jim Musgrave from Musgrave Financial Solutions. Jim, it's a pleasure to be here with you again.
I'm really excited about this episode, James. This is going to be a good one.
You know, the last couple episodes, we've been talking about strategies that people can use, retirees can use when they go to pull money out of their retirement funds.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about the probability approach or strategy, which we talked about was maybe the most common, but maybe not the best approach for people. It created a lot of risk for people and was solely based on the market. And then we introduced in our last episode the safety first or flooring approach, which provided some buffering in that risk and utilized or implemented the concept of annuities, which there's a lot of misconceptions about annuities, some good, some bad, but there's a lot of misconceptions about annuities. Social Security pensions are annuities.
Yep.
And then there's also life insurance that can be used as annuities. But using that approach to mitigate some risk and provide some security so that you didn't have to rely so much on your market-based initiatives. Today, we're going to talk about a third strategy, which really is implemented for those. Again, there's a lot of people that just do not like annuities and they're leery of annuities. Well, that's okay, because we have a third approach today that Jim's going to go through and talk through with you to show you how you can use this, what he's calling a 3-bucket strategy, to manage and pull out money withdrawal money from your retirement.
Yeah. So, I mean, and this is the thing too, is that in our first podcast, we talked about the things that you know to be true, the things that you know you don't know, then you got the blind spot. And so, you know, what I found is with annuities, people have opinions about them, and I'm not saying that they're good or bad. They're just another tool in the toolbox. So for people who say, listen, I feel more comfortable with, just taking money out of my investments and not doing an annuity, that's totally fine. So there's two opposing philosophies on how to construct a retirement income plan. One is very investment centric. We called it, as you just alluded to, James, it's called the probability based approach, where again, we're selling shares to raise cash to put in our checking account. And then in our last episode, we talked about the safety first approach, where we're basically using various annuities to raise our floor. And the idea with that is that, we want to cover our basic expenses with guaranteed income. So regardless of what the stock market does, I know I can rely on X amount of dollars to come into my checking account every single month. And so with that probability-based approach, there's always that risk that something can go wrong. I mean, and you also have to take into consideration, safe withdrawal rates. So there's all these different things that you have to take into consideration with a probability-based approach, in addition to the things that we talked about in depth, which is sequence of return risk, which is the risk of the market dropping significantly in the first, couple years of retirement. Because if you're taking money out when the market is dropping, you're accelerating the depletion of the account. And so, one thing is that let's kind of just go back a few years. So COVID hit, and basically the world shut down. And I'm sure you remember this, I hope, James, where if you remember back in March of 2020, every single asset class dropped, right? People were just going like, man, this is bad. I'm going to get out. So we found that stocks dropped, bonds dropped, and it wasn't just domestically, but it was also internationally. And what we found the first time this has ever happened in stock market history is that the S&P 500 dropped 34% in 4 weeks. That was crazy. So what do you do in that situation where now we're in a pandemic? I mean, most of us have never been in that situation before. We're watching our portfolio drop by the day, like crazy amounts per day. I mean, 34% in 4 weeks, that's crazy. So what is that? What happens when that kind of situation happens? Well, we're human beings and we tend to be emotional. And so our first instinct is to go into protection mode. listen, I'm going to sell. I'm going to take some risk off the side. We're going to sit on this dry powder or this money. And when things start to feel better, we'll start getting back in. Okay. So what happens is that people tend to sell well after the peak and things are going down. And then they get out after the market has already come off 10, 20%. And then the hardest thing is that, well, when is it right to get back into the market? And that's where people really, really miss the boat, is getting back in, knowing when to get back in. So and this is one of the reasons why we encourage our clients to stay fully invested, but just make sure that you've got a plan for when this happens. By the way, this stuff is going to happen, right? So I bring up this example because the market dropped like crazy in March, April of 2020, but it was the fastest recovery from a bear market in stock market history. And we actually ended up positive for the year in 2020. All right. And the reason why that's important is that if we had not sold, then remember, if the value of your portfolio will drop, but you still own the same number of shares. It's just the value of those shares have dropped. But if you don't sell, we know that the market's going to eventually go up. So if you were to hold on to your investments, you would have actually ended up positive of the year versus underperforming the market because you sold late and you got in late. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
So, this just like literally happened in the last 3 or 4 years. And by the way, whether you're in the accumulation phase or the distribution phase, stuff like this is going to happen. So let's say you're already retired and now you're in that situation again where all of a sudden, boom, the market's dropping. Well, we know that we should stay fully invested, but we don't know when the market's going to come back, but we know that it always comes back. Mm-hmm. So what this approach does is says, okay, listen, let's take a year's worth of living expenses and let's put them in a conservative account. So let's say and this is called the 3-bucket strategy, right? So let's say we take a year's worth of expenses. We'll keep it in cash, CDs, something, pretty safe. Then we got the moderate bucket. So that could be a time frame anywhere between 1 or 2 up to 10 years. That could be maybe like a 60-40 portfolio, 60% stocks, 40% bonds, something like that. And then you have a more aggressive portfolio that may be like more growth oriented. By the way, we're big fans of Roth IRAs and Roth conversions. And typically from a distribution point of view, your Roth accounts are typically the last accounts that you kind of go into. And by the way, when you pass away and your beneficiaries inherit a Roth IRA, they're still subject to the 10 rule, but they don't have to pay taxes on that. So we love the idea of doing the Roth and have that be the last type of account that you go into. So I kind of digressed a little bit, but I thought that was an important point. So the idea is, let's take a year's worth of expenses. And again, what it does is that it protects the principal and removes the market risk from the portfolio. And once you kind of spin down that conservative portfolio, then what you're going to do is you're just going to take some money from the moderate portfolio, replenish the conservative portfolio, and take some money from the aggressive portfolio if you want to and put it in the moderate. Now, in many cases, we'll just have 2 buckets. We'll have a conservative account and a moderate account, or moderate aggressive, depending on what your risk tolerance is. And we do that quite frequently. And so that's all you're doing. So if the market drops, you don't have to take money from your aggressive accounts. You just kind of wait till the market comes back. Let's say, we keep 3 months of living expenses in cash. And now CDs are to the point where you can actually earn a little something. Like, right now you can get roughly 5% in a, 6-12-month CD. CD rates are going to change here and there, but now since the Fed has raised interest rates a little bit, you can actually get a little bit of yield on CDs, which is kind of nice. So what happens is that, as you just ladder CDs in 3-month increments. So as the CDs come due, now 3 months of cash comes free. Now you can kind of spend that, and then after that time goes by, then the next ladder of CDs comes due, and now that cash is free to spend. So just to kind of give you an example, let's say you're a couple or one person who needs $5,000 a month or $60,000 a year. So in this strategy, we would say, all right, let's take 60,000, maybe a little bit more to have a little extra cash on hand, and we'll keep $15,000 in cash. Let's say for months 1, 2, and 3, we'll keep $15,000 in cash. We'll set up links. From we hold our stuff at Schwab, so you can just kind of link things up so it automatically goes over, or you just transfer that money over when you need it. But basically, then we're going to buy, a 3-month CD for $15,000. We'll buy a 6-month CD for $15,000 and a 9-month CD for $15,000. And so ultimately, over the year, we're going to withdraw $60,000, and we're going to spend that down. That's kind of what it's for. And then at some point in the fourth quarter, we're going to transfer some money from one of your other accounts into this one, just to kind of fill up the tank again. And so by doing that, it's a way that we can take some risk off the table for a year, and a lot of stuff can happen in a year. I mean, one of the statistics, I'm not sure if you know this, James, but out of the last 44 years, 33 years have been positive. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's a pretty good run.
Yeah. So, I mean, we know we're going to have down years. Guess what? That's just how it is. But there's more sunny days than rainy days. So that's essentially kind of what's going on. So, if you're going to take the investment-centric approach, we prefer the 3-bucket strategy over the probability-based approach. It's just a better way to deal with market risk, with sequence of return risk. And if you ask me, so Jim, what is your favorite distribution strategy? Well, the answer is I like to layer the 3-bucket strategy on top of the safety first strategy. To me, that is, you've got a very high probability of success if you take that approach. I'm going to raise my income floor and cover all my basic expenses, and then when I need to go into my portfolio, I can do that, but let's kind of set some money aside in the safe tank. And then, we need to replenish it from from the risk tank. So, and as I kind of mentioned with, in our other podcasts, is that we feel that retirees should have at least 2 sources of guaranteed income: Social Security, a pension, or an income annuity. You may or may not agree with me, but let's say you just want Social Security and do this, that's fine. But at least the 3-bucket strategy, in my opinion, is a better way to take money out than what we call the probability base, which is just saying, hey, take money out regardless of what the market is doing. And, that's it. Right. So as I said, there's, I love financial education. If you want to learn more about this stuff, I'm a big fan of Wade Pfau. His Safety First Retirement Planning book is great. The Retirement Planning book is great. And there's some other articles that we can kind of give you if you want to learn more about this stuff. So anyway, so that's the 3-bucket strategy. I think it's fantastic. And as I said, just to kind of repeat myself, I'm a huge fan of layering the 3-bucket on top of the safety first.
I think this has been super insightful. And for those that have questions or are curious to see if their current plan implements these 2 strategies, we invite you to reach out to Jim Musgrave and their team over at jimmusgrave.com and schedule a 30-minute session. There's no obligations, no strings attached. Just set a time to meet with them and go through your guys' scenario and get at least a second opinion on your current strategy to make sure that you've mitigated the risk and you've optimized your retirement. Jim, it's great to be with you on another episode. We look forward to being with you on the next one.
Yeah, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. So we'll see you on the next episode.